Imagine if you could have the older version of yourself from the future, maybe 20 years from now, come to present day and say, hey, I have some stuff you might want to know since I'm the future you. Well, at age 40, you can imagine YouTube didn't exist. When I was 20, that wasn't really a thing. But what I can do, where I can share this wisdom with you, wisdom that I wish I would have had and understood when I was younger in life. And that's largely what my channel is about. It's younger men getting to share the wisdom of a 40-year-old man. Because there's so many things you can't learn when you're in your 20s or teens or 30s because you're so distracted by what's my life all about, where am I supposed to go, what am I supposed to do, etc. Well, when you're 40, you've got all that stuff figured out, and then you have time and space to focus on all the other stuff. Well, what if you could get a supplement of the other stuff while you're still young? So what I've been focused on is emotional intelligence, is on wisdom. So for example, I keep mentioning this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I'm amazed how many people, well, I can't think of one person that I've mentioned this book and they actually said, oh yeah, I've read that book. People vaguely know about it, but to have actually read it it's almost like a cheat sheet. It's like hacking the system when you know how things actually operate. Like I made a video recently talking about how ultimately, when you talk to anybody, if you really boil down what they're wanting to conversate with you, they're either wanting your praise or your pity. And if you give them that, they like you. They think that you're interesting. Well, on that same note, as far as being a likable person, it's largely about how can I be the most to everyone? How can I relate to people? How can they relate to me? What does that look like? So for me right now, biblically, what I'm reading through in the morning before I go to the gym is I'm going through Proverbs. And it just so happened this was a verse that I read today. And I thought, yes, let's highlight that. Let's focus on that for a minute. Here we go. So it's Proverbs chapter 4, and it's verse 27. So again, it's Proverbs chapter 4, verse 27. Do not turn to the right, nor to the left. Turn your foot from evil. So the whole chapter is about embracing wisdom and how important that is and what a treasure that is. But it's interesting, do not turn to the right nor to the left. Now granted, I understand that's an ancient text. And the author was not referring to future American politics or politics in general. But we know that we live in a time where everything's polarized. We know that our phones send us to an echo chamber where whatever we express interest in, we get more of that in our news feed. So it makes it seem like more people agree with us, even though they don't necessarily. And it only separates us that much more from other people who have the opposite opinions and views. So now more than ever, one of the best things you can do, I feel, and there's a decision I've made, is to resolve to be politically neutral, a centrist. Because if you identify with either the left or the right, what do? You look down on the other side if they don't have that view as you. You can't help but judge them. You can't help but see them as ignorant or immoral or just flat out wrong. So if you live your life thinking half the population is ignorant, wrong, immoral, because they have a different view than you do, well, what about the people around you in real life? Do you feel that way about them? Can you really love your neighbor as yourself if you're secretly judging them because they have the wrong opinion? What if you just remove yourself from the system and think, I don't need to reduce people to their political views, to being conservative or liberal? Because as a centrist, I can say, you know what? Both sides are right. And both sides got some things to work out. But I don't want to put myself in a situation where I have to identify with one or the other. That's called tribalism. I don't want to basically join a sports team so that the other one is the team I've got to fight against. It's such a secret. It's such a treasure to know that you can navigate life better if you choose not to go left or right. If you don't choose a side. If you remain relatable to everyone, because ultimately that's what it's about. Going back to this book right here. If you want to be liked, if you want to be respected, if you want to be loved, what must you do? You must serve other people, as the Bible talks about, serving others, as Jesus washed the feet of the disciples. This is an ongoing thing, to serve others, and that's ultimately the meaning of life, really. What's the meaning of life? To give life meaning. How do you do that? Well, for you to feel like you matter, you have to matter to other people. That's what we're looking at here. I will say, and I'm fairly new to this whole concept of being politically neutral, but in the couple of weeks that I've switched over to this mindset, and I've mentioned this recently, it takes anxiety away. Because you're less focused on things you can't control, and you're less apt to judge other people for being wrong, immoral, or ignorant by removing yourself from that, by not choosing left or right. It's so easy to be distracted. And, you know, when it comes to people's views on Jesus, people tend to assign their own political affiliation with him. That he was conservative, that he was liberal. He was actually both. But more importantly, he wasn't really that concerned with politics. He said, yeah, give to Caesar what's Caesar, give to God what is God's. What did the people want Jesus to do? He did all these miracles, but they really wanted him to overthrow the government. The Romans, right? That's what he wanted. They wanted him to become the king. And he had all these followers. And they were confused when he didn't do what he easily could do. He didn't overthrow the government. And that confused a lot of people. I think that's interesting. Your comments right here.